Hello, friends, and welcome to Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Today we're taking a look at the magnificently stupid piece that is Beast Wars Neo Longrack. And I say stupid with love, because, I mean, it's a giraffe. It's a giraffe with a really goofy expression on its face, like it's mid-trying to pull leaves off a tree with its tongue or something. And there's not a whole lot to say about this mode because, I mean, it's just a giraffe. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a paint smudge on the neck for mine here, but whatever. Got some nice texture molded in there. Now you can get a better look at that ridiculous looking face with a tongue that's the wrong color, might I add. And yeah, and also when you push the tongue in, it does this. Yeah, it's a giraffe. I mean, it looks like a giraffe. Some spots that are a bit not quite right. And there's this little kind of grill on the side here, but for the most part, it's just a giraffe. It's got the proper giraffe silhouette, proper giraffe patterning. It's a giraffe. I don't really know what else to say about it. I don't have the missiles plugged in because when I got this guy used off eBay, it only came with one missile. Which, I mean, for the price, couldn't really complain. And the missiles just plug into the knees here. And I actually prefer not having the missiles in there because that red kind of just looks wrong and it breaks it up a bit. So we'll just leave that out there because there it's a bit more of a convincing giraffe leg than having that really kind of disturbingly red bit sticking out at the joint. I really don't know what else to say about Longrack's alt mode, to be honest. It's a giraffe. I mean, some liberties had to be taken here and there because it's a transforming toy, but I think the colors and patterns are fine, and for what it does, I think that they did the best they could with the physical limitations that they have for making a toy. I guess I could say that just from my own recollection of what a giraffe looks like, these shoulders in the front seem a little too bony and stick out a little too far. But, it's not really much else I could fault it for. Well, I guess there's that, and then you've got the gappage and stuff. But again, can't really avoid that with the way this thing is designed. I mean, this bit here, I feel like if they had painted the edges like this brown or this kind of tannish color, it might blend in a little bit better and not look quite so blatant with this like narrow stripe of hair and then just this big block there that gets narrow again. But, limitations. Really, the only thing that bothers me about the giraffe mode is that head. And it's not that I think the head looks bad per se, although I don't think giraffes have this big stripe going up their snout like that. It's not that the head looks bad in terms of like the color and the painting and the molding and all that. It's just the expression, the tongue thing, like that could have not been there and it would have been better. I also kind of wish that the head could actually move down further. Instead, it can only go up. And yeah, because it's a giraffe. It's tall. I think it would make more sense if you could have it looking down a little bit more. Whatever. Anyway, this readjusted because this part of it's going really fast. And we're getting into size comparisons already. And yeah, I mean, here we've got Longrack with the Amiibo and a Titan's Return Deluxe. And it's a really big giraffe because it's a giraffe. Not really much else to say about it. It's a good sized giraffe. I think this fits for what the alt mode is. And I think it's also fitting that the robot mode is actually shorter than the alt mode because, again, giraffe, it's just legs and neck. That said, in case anyone is wondering, I will be moving on from using Titan's Return Deluxes and size comparisons shortly. It's just a matter of getting my hands on a few more Power of the Primes Deluxes so I can do a bit more of a modern size comparison, or updated size comparison, rather. I really don't know what else I can say about this alt mode because it's a giraffe that doesn't really do anything. The only other criticism I guess I could have is that the tail is too bushy. Like, I just feel like this is there's too much on the end here for an actual giraffe, but it's a giraffe. It's a stock still can barely pose toy giraffe. So, don't really have much else to say about it, so I guess we should just go straight to the robot mode, because it's just a giraffe. And here we have the monumentally ridiculous Longrack in his robot mode. And I'm sure, shocking nobody, I love this. It's so absurd and just completely dumb that it just cancels all the dumbness out and becomes awesome. It's completely ridiculous. It's just a robot with some giraffe bits hanging off of it, and it's fantastic. The silhouette alone is kind of monstrous, extremely asymmetrical and lumpy, and then one entire arm is just a giraffe neck. It's so dumb and fantastic. Now here you definitely get a bit more color than just the tan and brown from the giraffe. You get more of that really dark red and a fair bit more gray, and then just a little bit of gold and green in the torso area. And this works really well. I mean, it's a nice mixture of animal bits and robot bits. And yeah, it does sort of, it looks like a robot that's just sort of like wearing a giraffe costume, but I think that's kind of the point, and it definitely comes across here. And the balances of the colors and the distribution of the different details works really well here as well, because most of the giraffe bits are still here, but now robot bits are more integrated. Like with the exception of the bits on the back that are just obscured by the figure itself, pretty much everything you saw in giraffe mode is here. Like you've got the head and neck, you've got parts of the back and the, back, the sides, the legs. You can even still see, moving this a little closer here, you can still see the full-on giraffe hooves are there. They're just covered now by these kind of robotic leg braces and shoes. And that's actually a pretty neat effect. I know other people have said similar stuff about it, but I really like how this just comes out and encases the giraffe leg. Instead of having the giraffe leg kind of fold up and just getting regular robot legs, it really does a good job of further kind of combining the two elements of mechanical and organic. And you got the big old claw, which is silly, but I do actually really like it. And like the inside too, it's kind of hard to tell, but on the insides of these skirt flaps here, you've got more mechanical details that help to further blend everything together. It's really well done. It's dumb, but it's really well done. Here you can kind of see a little bit of that gold, and a lot of it is obscured by this panel that you can flip out of the way, and you can kind of see a lot more detail in there that has been painted, and I don't really know why, since primarily he's got this covering his little spark or whatever. But, I mean, it's still cool, it's there. And then, of course, you've got that head, which is weird, but I also kind of love it. Like, you've got a fair bit of the giraffe patterns going around the outside there, but it's also integrated with the mechanical bits, like the top of the head here and the chin strap and, of course, the face. I really do like how the giraffe bits are very subtly kind of implemented and integrated into the design there. And it's an interesting head design, and it also brings a lot of those colors together, like this grayish silver here is pretty close to the gray in the torso there. You've got the green that's just for the eyes and crest, but I feel like it always makes sense when a Transformers toy has color that's specific to the head sculpt, because it kind of makes sense. It just really, as goofy as this thing is, it does a really good job of tying the animal mode into the robot mode. There are regular Transformers that turn into cars and helicopters and planes and stuff that do a worse job of integrating their alt mode bits without it just being like a shell. I mean, yes, this is totally a shell, but it's still integrated pretty darn well, because again, the only real bits of this guy that you could call kibble is the tail hanging off the shoulder, which I think is like a nice stylistic thing. The unnecessarily large arm for the giraffe neck, which again, I think is actually just a cool stylistic thing. And then the front legs here. That's it. And really, in my mind, the front legs are the only thing that could do with an alternate place to put them. And also because these are where the missiles go, I kind of think it would be nice if these could hinge in a way that they could point forward, like actually point forward well, like over the shoulder, like he's using them for shoulder-mounted missile launchers. But whatever. Longrack is a surprisingly cool robot, as well as incredibly dumb looking, but that dumbness is kind of what makes him look cool. And for the size comparison, you can see the Titantron Deluxe and the Amiibo that, like I said, the robot mode is actually quite a bit shorter than the alt mode, which makes sense because, like I said, the giraffe is just legs and a neck, kind of stacked around a potato. Whereas here, all of that unfolds and we get this. And I do think it's interesting how it's not something you see very often with transforming figures, where the alt mode is significantly larger than the robot mode. Typically, it's the other way around, where everything kind of shrinks down and compacts into a smaller thing like a car or a plane or whatever. But here, stuff actually kind of compacts in more for the robot mode. And yeah, stuff is still unfolding and stretching out, but the legs don't really get any longer. The neck actually comes down more. It's really interesting how his proportions change in the opposite way that you're kind of used to. And yes, I will acknowledge Longrack does have a third kind of base artillery mode or whatever it is, but it's really dumb and nobody is going to get this toy for that mode. And I'm pretty sure most people who have this toy completely ignore that mode anyway. It's just kind of a mess. It's a half-transformed mess. Which is funny because Longrack's robot mode is actually a mess, but it's a good kind of mess. It's a surprisingly cohesive mess. And I love how ridiculous this is. The articulation is limited in a couple of points, both due to, I believe, the age of the toy, by which I mean when it was made, not the fact that it's just old and not doing well. It's just because of when it was designed. The articulation's a little bit limited in places, especially that arm, and then, you've got some kibble, but a lot of the kibble I think works really well. The only other thing that I guess would be nice is if the kibble on this arm could come in a little bit more. I mean, I don't really know how they could do it without resorting to parts forming or something like that, but this arm's definitely kind of weirdly out there, and I think it would actually work better if this could just come in a little bit more and make this look like a bit more of a normally proportioned arm, because this is already really out there, but whatever. I just think Longrack is really awesome, and I know I am not alone, because virtually everyone who does a video on this guy talks about how ridiculous he is, but that's kind of what makes him adorable. And all I can do is say the same thing. Longrack is a really stupid, really fascinating figure that I really enjoy. No, it's not particularly interesting to have me echo the sentiments that everyone else who gets their hands on this toy said, but really, they're right. It's a giraffe that turns into a robot. That's not something that's very common, and it's done really well. Yes, I only have one other Beast Wars Neo figure, and that's Karada, and Karada is also freaking awesome. But from what I've seen of a lot of other Beast Wars Neo figures, those two are basically the standouts in the line. Everything else is just not done as well. But that's enough of my thoughts on Longrack. What are your thoughts on Longrack? Does anybody else out there have him? Are any of you just not into this look? Because I could totally understand that. Are there any other Beast Wars Neo figures that you all think I should keep an eye out for? Because in my mind, from what I've seen, Karada and Longrack are basically the two good ones from the line. I mean, some of the other ones, arguably aren't bad, but those two seem like the standouts, and I'm curious to know if there are any others that I might want to look into. So by all means, if any of you have any other Beast Wars Neo figures that you think I should keep an eye out for, let me know. And what are some other animals that weren't in the Beast Wars Neo line that you think would have been an interesting addition? So I feel like it could have been cool to do some of the more obscure dinosaurs, or even just pre-dinosaur sea life, because there were some seriously freaky-looking prehistoric fish. I mean, wow. Whatever you might think, you can comment down below, and while you're at it, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any combination of those three things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is really goofy, but also more than meets the eye.